Donald Trump is known for a lot of things, like owing $500 million in his 2 civil judgments and being an adjudicated rapist. But aside from that, he's also known for nicknames. He loves to give people very clever, subtle, and nuanced nicknames. But now he's giving himself one, and we're gonna evaluate it. He posted this message, which is kind of like human speech. It says, Dean Phillips, who just quit his hapless campaign against crooked Joe Biden, was not very good at his craft, politics. In fact, I would say that he was far worse than the Republican challengers to me, with a few exceptions. This is all over the place. I'll give you those names if you like, but I'd rather get down to the serious business. This isn't a live interview, man. This is a social media post. Why are you like prompting for? Anyway, for the good of our now failing nation and in order to inform the American people of what is going on in our capital C country, we must immediately have a full-scale debate between Crooked Joe and Honest Don. I'm ready to go. Anytime, any place, except at any of the times and places that the many debates that were held in the Republican primary were going on. I just didn't have time, baby. That's just Honest Don stuff.
Before we continue with the story, we depend on members to keep on going. Don't wait, click join now on YouTube.
Other Honest Don stuff includes the 30,573 false or misleading claims that the Washington Post adjudicated over the course of 4 years. And I considered briefly, in responding to the Honest Don thing, reminding you of a bunch of the specific ones, and maybe we'll do a bit of that. But honestly, I'm getting old, and I want to go to the best one. My favorite Trump lie of all time, which isn't even like a thing he said so much as just a thing I can show you. It's when he drew an extension of the path of a hurricane because he'd said it was gonna hit a state that it wasn't. And rather than just admit that he was wrong, he took out a Sharpie, the wrong color Sharpie, by the way. He's not even good at coloring with Sharpies, and he drew onto the path of a hurricane. This is what some men will do rather than getting therapy. And that, Rayyvana, is Honest Don, who wants to debate Joe Biden. What do you think?
I think it's phenomenal. Thank you for reminding me of that. I mean, there was just so much that happened during the Trump administration. That event had actually entirely escaped my mind. So always happy to be reminded of that kind of nonsense, and hopefully praying, God willing, we will never have to experience another 4 years of that man as the president. But it's looking more and more like that might happen. I actually think that he's right, that it's important that he and Joe Biden have debates. I think everything else he said is utterly incorrect, particularly referring to himself as Honest Don. But I would hope that the Biden campaign would be willing to have those debates. I can see all the arguments they'd make already about, we don't think it's necessary to debate someone who's been accused of so many crimes, someone who's so dishonest, as opposed to the nickname he's given himself. And I can see the argument they would make, but I do think that, I think it's important to remind a lot of the country who Donald Trump is in juxtaposition to Joe Biden, because he's not the current president anymore, Donald Trump. And so a lot of that fear that might have motivated people to go to the polls 4 years ago has subsided, and just remind people the insane, and we're gonna talk later about his plans for Social Security, but stand next to him and make these arguments, because the last time they debated, it didn't go awful for Joe Biden, I don't think. And after the commanding performances that Donald Trump put in 2016, he's definitely not that person anymore. He's a lot less lucid than he was then. I mean, of course, Joe Biden's declined in age since then as well, but I still, after the State of the Union, I think that he'd be capable of having that type of debate. And I won't even fault Trump for not debating in the primaries, because he knew he was gonna win. So why lower yourself to debate the people who you knew were never gonna beat you? As far as a campaign strategy, it's great. I think as far as democracy goes for this country, not great, which is why I would encourage the Biden administration, or not the administration, but the campaign to accept the offer of a debate.
I agree with you there. I'm gonna disagree on a few things. One, yes, as a campaign strategy. The reason I'm gonna knock him for not doing that is because he's a cowardly little whiny baby with no testicles. That's why I'm gonna do it, because you were terrified that you were gonna lose a debate to Puddin' Hands Ron and Tim Scott. That's why I'm gonna knock him, because it's utterly pathetic. The only thing more pathetic is the fact that his base doesn't see it as the cowardice that it is. And the reason he didn't debate is the same reason that he constantly tries to pull out of debates. He doesn't actually have confidence in his ability to debate because he's not very good at it. He was bad at it in 2020. I'm more critical of his 2016 appearances. I think he looked like a deranged stalker, a creepy little weirdo. And I think he really fired up Hillary Clinton's base with some of his misogynistic attacks against her. I think that if he goes up against Biden, he'll say a bunch of insane things and his base will like it. And he will look like a deranged madman compared to Joe Biden. He'll make Joe Biden look like your nice old grandpa or whatever. Joe Biden will get a couple of probably factually based slams in against Donald Trump. And I think it'll probably help Biden. And I agree, for the purposes of democracy, you gotta do it. It's a norm. I think that they should do it. They don't seem to be willing to say that they will. So I'm not sure, but I hope that they do. In any event, we need to turn into sort of related issues. This is of Honest. By the way, the Honest Don, Crooked Joe and everything. Like if you're a MAGA person, why does it bother you that he has no respect for you whatsoever? Like this is like baby shark levels of coming up with names. Like he thinks he can just put Mama Shark on something and that will totally brainwash you.
Mini Mike.
Crooked Joe, I'm Honest Don. Do you get it, dummy? It's so utterly insulting, but it doesn't seem to bother them.